Really delighted to be here today. I'm Rita Evans. I'm the Leading Greater Manchester Programme Director. I've been in the post since January. It's a new role for a new offering of leadership and development across Greater Manchester. I met with Justine and Hayley and other colleagues a few months ago now to talk about the work that we're doing. We're mindful that some of the GM Moving Greater Sport colleagues are already on the programme of activity that we're running, and we were talking about ways that we could actually engage you further in that, and started to talk about, well, could we do something that was sector specific for GM Moving? So we're just exploring that as an option at the moment. I was delighted then to be invited here today to talk with you about the progress we've made around leading GM, and just explore some ideas around what that might mean for you as leaders and where we go from here, really. So I've got a couple of slides to share and a couple of video clips. I am aware it's Friday afternoon. It is one of the last sessions, so we did agree I'd keep it a little bit lighter. So I hope that goes down well, and actually just, you know, no more than 30 minutes really. That does involve some table discussion as well. And please do get involved as we go through. I'm not here kind of to just download lots of information. It is very much a sharing and exploring together. In terms of the Leading GM programme or the Leading GM offer, has anybody who in the room has actually heard about Leading GM? So a few hands. Yeah, so a few hands around the room. And I know that there's some people actually been on some of our activities as well. I know Yvonne Harrison was on the first programme. I don't think she's here today, is she? But been a really active participant on the first programme. So just to share a little bit about Leading GM, it's a programme of activity, development activity for Greater Manchester leaders. The ultimate purpose is about mobilising a community of cross-sector leaders, so from all public services and voluntary sector across Greater Manchester. It's a programme of activities that will support leaders to achieve their Stronger Together ambition. So that's the ambition that brings us together across organisations, regions and the landscape of Greater Manchester. And we know its success is only as good as the engagement we have with individuals. And actually, whatever we do with individuals within these activities, it's all about them being engaged, sharing insight, sharing best practice, and ultimately going away and doing something differently. So that's the overall intent of Leading GM. In terms of 18 months ago, and actually just move on. Oh, I think I've lost the expectations, sorry, slightly out of order. In about 18 months ago, a group of cross-sector leaders came together to develop a set of expectations in answer really to the question around, you know, what is it that brings us together as leaders across Greater Manchester? So these were a list of expectations that were developed, not to replace individual organisational values and behaviours, but something that could work alongside those as expectations of leaders in terms of working differently in their place, in the place of Greater Manchester, or it could indeed be localities or districts. But when we're together as cross-sector leaders, what are some of the common expectations? So 9 expectations developed. I'm really pleased to say, as we've reviewed the programme and the offering, and it's evolving all the time because that's right to do in response to what are the needs of our citizens. But these are the one thing actually that has really stood the test of time. And actually when we reviewed the overall programme offering in May, we tested these out and people were saying, yes, still very current, still very relevant, they make sense to us. Now, no doubt they will evolve as a set of expectations, but it's just a good marker of really what brings us together. And I'm sure looking at those, you will see some things that really resonate. Certainly looking at your, I think, strategic framework and the priorities within that, the things that are in the booklet on the tables, I can see a real connection with those things, and I hope that you can too. And particularly the area around leading from place. So I heard that language already in the short time I've been with you today, but great that there's a natural connection because that's what they're intended for. So these expectations underpin the Leading GM offer, of which there is a programme of activity, there's masterclasses, there is more of a formal programme of events, various things going on, but this underpins everything, so the golden thread really that runs throughout. So what I thought would be helpful at this point is just to share a video clip of some of the Leading GM participants speaking about their experiences on the programme. So this video I'm going to show you was taken back in March. It was the end, or not the end really, but the final formal event of the first cohort, the first programme that we'd run. So it was an opportunity, it was called a review and reflection event. So we've got some participants there, we've got some of the speakers involved. I think there's even a clip of me as well. I hate seeing myself, so I'll probably be hiding behind the screen at that point. So just a short video clip to give you more of a sense. Okay, well I hope that was helpful just in terms of giving a real sense of the programme and the range of activities. And what really strikes me is the variety of people that are involved. It is about developing a leadership community. It's not rank or band specific. The offer is for any GM leader in any sector. And increasingly we've got voluntary sector more involved, more engaged, and also the private sector as well. We'll talk more in a moment about really how you might get involved. Before we do that, I'll just talk a little bit about how the programme's evolving. I did mention that in May we reviewed the overall offer. At that point we'd ran one cohort. We'd just embarked on the second cohort. That's due to have its reunion reflection in October. So it was an important time just to take stock really. So I'll just share with you some of the changes and how the programme's evolving in response really to our place and our citizens. Before I just go into that detail, there's a very short YouTube clip here that I'd just like to share with you. And for me, it really captures the essence of the Leading GM offer. It'll take a little bit of imagination because it's probably more of an emotional reaction as to what the offer's about. And actually, I've got to say, does suit my personal preferences. However, personal preferences apart, ultimately, I see the offer around really helping leaders in Greater Manchester to connect with our people, with our citizens in a different way. And that difference is often at the emotional level. Often we think a lot about heads, systems and processes. That's clearly always important. But also if we're truly going to respond to people's needs, then we really need to be able to connect with people. And that true connection and true trust comes at an emotional level for me. That's how I see it. So I'll just share this very short clip and please be imaginative. So in terms of what we've really learnt about the Leading GM offer is that whilst the programme has been traditional in some elements and untraditional in others, what we've realised is we need to connect it much more in its place, in the place of our people in Greater Manchester, in localities, in communities. So moving forward, we're challenging ourselves to ensure that the programme is a true place-based leadership programme. So we've looked for different definitions of calling it a programme because often people have a very traditional expectation of that. But ultimately it is a programme of activities. But what will be really different about it is that it is absolutely grounded in place. So we've developed some design principles for future development of the programme. I won't go through each of those points, but ultimately, in terms of how we onboard people on the programme, we'll be bringing people on as place-based teams and actually going out to places, localities, districts, whatever we like to call them, and really focusing on what are the real challenges and opportunities and issues in that place that need addressing, and bringing a team of cross-sector leaders together to work on that real issue. So it'll absolutely have a golden thread, our offer, into the community. But what the key difference for me is that actually we won't be driving out what we think the community needs. It will actually be responding to what the community needs are and then wrapping a programme of activity around that. So that's the key difference in terms of design and how we move forward. What we've also realised is the Leading GM offer is actually developing, or we need to offer development through three interconnecting perspectives or three lenses. And we're going to be much more explicit in that as we move forward and bring people onto a new programme. So clearly at the heart of this, and that's the person in the middle, is the individual person embarking on learning. And actually what we're going to really focus on much more is that person, not just as a leader in Greater Manchester, but that person as a citizen. We know that many of our leaders, and I'm sure many of you here today, and probably the majority of people, do actually live somewhere in Greater Manchester. So really helping individuals get in touch with what does it feel like to be a citizen in Greater Manchester, and how does that translate to my work. So again, really trying to always cite back to what does it feel like to live and be a resident in Greater Manchester. So building on that, the other perspective is then the place-based learning, which I've mentioned. So that's the people sort of illustrated in the yellow. And really then bringing people together as place-based teams in a locality, a district or a community to work on real challenges and issues. And then the third lens is the GM systems perspective, because ultimately this programme offering has been developed to really develop this community of leaders across the system, understand more about what the GM landscape is, and I know you've been doing some of that today, and what does that mean in our work. So it's three different lenses, but also they're interconnecting, but recognising that actually in any one day we can be working in any of those three areas, and sometimes I'm sure it feels like we're working in all three at once. So just recognising that and what challenges that brings as a GM leader. So that's really the main focus around the programme. In terms of how it will look, we're working that out at the moment. The last two cohorts has been 6 months. We know if you're working on real challenges and opportunities, they're not going to be done and dusted in 6 months. So we see this running much more over 12 months. And indeed, if they are, done and dusted and we've evaluated, as you suggested in that time, then let's start on something else. But we do see it as more of a 12-month journey together. The colours around here, I won't go into all the detail, but you'll recognise the colour themes and where you've got individual things going on in the purple, the locality place-based things going on in the yellow, and then the green things are when we bring everyone together as a GM community. So really trying to get the best of everything. So it really feels like things are heading in more of an emergent way, more of a place-based way, and for me, more in the right direction. But we'll keep learning. But that's really where the Leading GM offer's at. The conversations we've been having is, is there scope for you to become more involved in the Leading GM offer, in the programme, or is there something we can develop specifically for GM moving? Increasingly, we're working with different localities, different sectors to translate this offer into their areas, as well as having the program that we're coordinating. So it's a flexible, fluid offer. And I'd invite you now on your tables just to think about what you've heard and what the opportunities are within your, for you as individuals, within your sector and within the region. So whatever your place is, really. So where are the opportunities? What value could Leading GM help deliver in that place? And some ideas around how we should move forward. So really, I've come here to explore with you today, just to give you a snippet of the work I'm involved in and leading on. And over to you. If you could capture some of your thoughts, I think there's paper on the tables. Yeah.